Cool.
Here we go. All right, we have something recording. Let's go.
All right. Good problem solving. Good problem solving.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Sorry about
sometimes we just gotta work with what we got, you know.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. So back to what we were discussing. You know, the transition from the company, business, that kind of thing, to you know, Chris Key, and delivering things online as opposed to as much in person, and that shift that you went through. What were some of the challenges or frustrations that you faced along that change?
So I'd say the two biggest challenges that I had were around mindset and marketing. The mindset side of things was getting my head around going from a brand that I could. So when I had the brick and mortar gym, I was not the name of the brand, but very much the face of the brand, because I was there essentially all day, every day, knew all of the members all knew me, which was great, but a lot of pressure. When I then first transitioned to online around the pandemic, I went through the brand name of virtual personal training, and I did that specifically to stay away from having all of the pressure on me. And then when I made the final, most recent transition to running everything under my actual name, it's been an interesting one to go through that mindset change again of how do I almost step up and be the name and face of the brand and be comfortable and happy doing that. So there's been some mindset change, particularly around now putting out a lot of video content. It's like, okay, I'm really out there. This is me right here. So the mindset side of that has been a challenge. And then the marketing side of things, I'd say, has probably been the biggest challenge, because I spent my whole life working in gyms where you walk up to people and you have conversations and you build rapport and you get to know people, you get to know their challenges, you get to know if you can help them. Even if you can't help them, you get friendly faces and become a friendly face in the gym. Whereas moving everything online, it was completely different. I still know that I have the same value to offer to people, but getting the message out there is, for me, much more difficult than walking up and talking to a person face to face. For other people, it's probably the other way around, and they would be terrified of going and walking up to somebody and introducing themselves and saying, hi, how are you? How's it going? What are you trying to work on, etc. Whereas online, they'd be more than happy to put systems in place to market themselves. But for me, that was probably the biggest challenge, stepping out of my comfort zone, which is people, and into an area that I don't know, which is going on the internet to try and reach out to people. If that makes sense. That's probably been the biggest challenge, I'd say.
No, I can imagine. What have you learned? So I have a couple of bits to add to that, but like, what have you learned in that process and working through those challenges?
So when it comes to the mindset side of things, I think what I've learned is to make a decision and stick with it for a decent period of time to give it a real test. So when I first moved things online, I would dabble in a little bit of this. I did a little bit of SEO. I worked on a little bit of a marketing strategy. I was trying lots of little bits of this, that, and the other. And as a consequence, nothing was really making any headway. So I think what I learned early on there is to focus on an outlet and really work hard on that. So most recently for me, that's been putting educational content on LinkedIn, which has been about 18 months or so now that I've been doing that. And that's led to some really interesting opportunities, like having a conversation with you. My most recent focus now has been to switch the same effort and intent to YouTube, because the content performs significantly better. I think because people are looking for long form content rather than having long form content kind of spoon fed to them by an algorithm in a different way. So that's been interesting. From a marketing point of view, I guess there's a similarity in terms of trying something and sticking with it and really making sure that I'm being more methodical with how I approach marketing. I think the biggest change for me in marketing has been learning that you don't want to talk to everybody. And if you try and talk to everybody, you end up talking to no one. And that took me a long time to get my head around, because I was like, well, I want my potential audience to be as broad as possible, so more people are interested in what I have to say. And it took me a long time to learn that, and I'm still learning now, to be fair, that you want to talk to a really, really specific subset of people who all of your messaging resonates with them on a higher level, rather than people going, oh yeah, I kind of get what he means, I suppose, and then they don't care, versus somebody who listens to what you have to say and goes, yeah, you understand my problems. That's exactly how I feel. Those are exactly the challenges that I've been facing in my health and well-being.
Absolutely.
And yeah, that's been the biggest one.
Yeah, and I guess law of large numbers too, right? Given the sheer amount of human beings that exist on the internet, on platforms, what, like, really, like, we're talking 0.01% is enough to make a significant impact on a lot of people's lives and build a sustainable life for ourselves, around that as well. So people think that, how many people there actually are in existence, especially when you're talking online. Like, I have the same breakdown with brick and mortar businesses, where they're like, oh, but we don't want to exclude da-da-da-da. I'm like, yeah, but if you've got 2 people out of the 100 that you're serving right now who are outside of that, let them feel left out, dude, because they're gonna come anyway, right? Because those people that are outside that ecosystem, or that let's call it ideal client profile or whatever, they're going to come regardless through other avenues, whether it's referrals, whether it's friends and family, whether it's someone you just meet on the street, like, oh, you're a PT, oh, you only do online, dude, that actually works really well for me, because I live like 3 hours away, and like there isn't a gym around. I just work out at home. Like, which I understand detracts from the online portion, but like, wouldn't have been your target audience anyway, right? And the fact of the matter is, it's impossible to reach everybody, right?
It is.
Why? And we have to learn that as well, I guess. But one thing, like, if we wind back a little bit, that you said that I found really interesting was the transition, from in conversations and walking the gym floor to, I guess, online, right? Me, I look at it as the same exact thing.
Okay,
right?
interesting.
It's just, instead of a gym floor, you've got a Facebook group, or a YouTube community, or however many connections on LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn has communities now too. And for me, I look at it as, if like 10,000 people see me as that guy, right? And whatever context it may be in, right? Like, trolling through certain, Facebook groups that I exist in, I am known as the app guy, right? And that's not because I'm sitting there in everyone's comments being like, hey bro, I'll build you an app. It's like having enough knowledge and background to be genuinely valuable when somebody asks a question. And then every now and again, throw something out there that challenges what certain people are feeling or going through at the moment, right? Like, just in general, to a community. And slowly those opportunities come through to send a message, right? Or receive a message. Most of the time you get messages on posts or comments that have 0 reactions, because people are too shy to actually give any indication of that having impact on them. Right? There's that lurker or whatever, where someone watches every single thing but never actually do anything until they're ready to pull the trigger, and then you're like, where did you come from? Like,
This person's been paying attention for a long period of time.
right?
And now suddenly here they are.
Right, and no metrics, just an inquiry, like, hey, I want to work
Yeah.
with you. Well, yes. Let's
Yeah.
go, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I look at, you know, the digital space is just a really big gym floor, and approach it that way, you know, without your opening line being like, hey man, I could really help you with your crap issue, you know, whatever it may,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
it's
It's an interesting analogy, because back in the in-person days, you do build kind of third-party credibility, because people will see you working with other clients, and the clients working hard, enjoying themselves, learning things, you paying attention, using proper programming, etc. And you will get people every now and again who come up and go, I want to work with you. And you're like, oh, okay, cool. Like, I'm
yeah.
Chris, nice to meet you. Tell me more. Like, oh, I've seen
Mhm.
you with such and such. And I know this person from a class, and or I've seen you how you approach a specific exercise, and I want to learn to do that. I've seen you've got one of your clients who's gone from whatever kg deadlift up to whatever.
Mhm.
I wanted the same thing. I've seen you do that, and I want to work with you. So that's a really interesting analogy, actually.
Yeah. And like literally all I try and create, right, is some level of like, oh, this guy knows what he's talking about. And also in certain circumstances, like a FOMO, right?
Okay.
Recently I've been like, so I haven't posted much myself in a while. Because we've been, you know, doing these other strategies and, you know, business pages are not
Yeah.
important. But you know, Facebook has this memories feature, right? And it was
Yeah.
giving me all these memories from the last couple of years, which were not actually memories, just me talking yak on Facebook. And one of them was like, oh, a couple of them actually. One of them was like, oh, what was it? I think something around like 19 or 20 apps, sorry, bookings made in this app in like just a few days or something. And I was like, hang on a minute. Like, so I shared that. And the caption was actually a quick mini audit of that business now to 2-ish years later. And we're doing like consistently 100 plus per week. Right.
No.
And for a clinic, that's pretty decent. Like
Yeah.
for one man, 1-2, like
Oh, cool.
him and a
Okay.
receptionist, that's pretty intense. Like he's literally seeing 2 patients at the same time every 15 minutes. Like the guy's incredible. Yeah, and he's a relationship with every single person. That's amazes me, is that he can, you know, check his notes, get a refresher on that person and their life, and just hit it. Like mind blowing how he practices. You know, and then, you know, similar things like that, and just doing that in the last like week and a half, I've gotten like 10 messages from various people who I have known and spoken to before, or just people who have been following me, you know, whatever, being like, oh, can I get that? Like, how do I, you know? So you never like, yeah, like
It's
just
an
being out
interesting one,
there.
how credibility and social proof kind of
And
mold
just
together. And
sprinkle just a little bit of that, like, hey, don't you want this too? Like,
yeah.
and yeah, it's very cool. It's like we still grind the DMs though. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think there's ever, in terms of digital, in terms of online, I don't think there's ever an excuse for not doing that. But yeah, it's fun. It's fun. Yeah, there's something about it, man. Like manual, there's something about it's humbling. You know, it's humbling.
That's for sure. That's
Yeah,
very true. That's very true. Yeah.
for sure. And if you were to describe like a sticking point in terms of like, you know, where you've come through so far, tech, team, time, you know, something like that, where would you say you would be at the moment?
That's a really good question. There's of all of that, I would say that team is probably where I'm best set up at the moment. So I've worked with teams when I was employed and when I've worked for myself in the brick and mortar gym and online as well. I've been good at creating an around me. So at the moment, I'm working with a video editor who does a brilliant job of mostly producing and publishing short form, like very shorts content, kind of the 30 to 60-second mark. And that's getting some decent reach on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. So from a team point of view, I think that's where I'm best set up at the moment. Time is a challenge because you always have a list of things which need doing, and there's the essentials which you have to do to keep a roof over your head, keep business running. There are the things that you need to prioritize to take some small steps forward, clean everything up, tidy things up, and make sure that you're running as efficiently as possible. And then there's the list things of like, oh, if I had unlimited time, I would definitely do this to kick up a level. And finding of that is difficult. I'd say over the last 6 months, I got much faster at my video editing, and then also decided to make longer content, which means that the video editing is back to taking about the same amount of time that it was before, although the end product is twice as long and much more polished.
Yeah.
So the side of things is an interesting one.
For sure. And it's more reworkable, right? Like 20 minutes cuts down into 4x5s, into 6x3s, into unlimited reels. Like,
I've always found that a really interesting one of how to set up time, because I find it quite difficult to use a 20-minute block of time productively. Whereas if you give me an hour or two, I almost mentally feel as though, cool, I can just really head down, focus, and just lock in and get a task done start to finish.
Yeah.
Whereas I've experimented with breaking things down into their small components, and often I get to the end of the day and end up feeling like I've achieved nothing. But then get to the end of the fortnight and you go, oh yeah, cool, okay, lovely, I've got that thing done that would have taken me a 6-hour block, but actually I've got done.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting one. And sure. I do think that's different for everyone. I do think that some people can bounce between. So for me, it's client meetings, it's programming, and then it's shooting, scripting, editing, and trying to fit the business development in on top of everything else. It's like, okay, cool. How can I make use of these small nuggets of time between? I've got half an hour between clients later on this afternoon. How do I use that half an hour to the best of my ability? That's one that I found quite challenging.
Send 20 DMs.
Say again, sorry.
Send 20 DMs.
I mean, true.
That's literally for a while. You've got your doom scroll time or whatever, right? There were phases of like being really bad about scrolling, but there are also phases where I'll literally like, I've got 20 minutes, I've got maybe an hour, or like even that, weird like 90-minute window before bed where you kind of want to sit and do nothing, but then you're also like, dude, the house is quiet, like I could do something,
Get something done,
and it's like it's always a naughty decision, no matter no matter which way you go, it's naughty, right? And so I'll do both. I'll chuck something on the TV and just sit there and just hit the DMs for bang, 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 I always found that like really fun. But yeah, that's like my version of doom scrolling is just like chatting to people.
Cool.
I don't know. It might be
helpful. I think that's where the tech side of things is most for me, is if I know that my logistics are well set up, then it's easier to dive into a task because you can get straight into it. You know where everything is, you know that it's connected and going to have some immediate output after you've done it. And whether that's as simple as initiating a conversation that's then automated before or beyond a specific point. Maybe it means that there was already an automated conversation that you then get to jump in and have the person on top of the initial.
So I've never done botted conversations.
Me neither.
Not that I've there's been opportunity. People have asked, don't want to try this out. I've never enjoyed it because I find the initial touch point to be so contextless that, I'd like taking over those conversations because I just like there's nothing there, and whereas I have processed out my DMs, like literally I've got it down to the granular in terms of organic outreach or whatever, right?
Yeah.
100 friend requests, roughly 60 to 80 accepts, send exactly that many DMs, roughly 20 to 30 conversations, boom, 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 down, calls, dot, right? Same with this podcast, right? So with this, we're specifically using LinkedIn for outreach. Roughly 50 connections a day sent. And then I can reverse engineer from that point, what the data, because it's numbers, right? So for every 50, I know that I will get 1 to 2 guests, right? And so all of a sudden, so now flip that to a work component, right? Where I know that every 100 friend requests or connection requests or whatever, with the, intention of having those conversations, turning them into calls, turning them into literally the goal is every day ask 2 to 3 people if they want to work with me.
Nice.
That's it. And whether it happens through the 100 requests avenue or whether it happens through me just scrolling. Sometimes I'll just open up my contacts list and boom, boom, boom. I'm oh, we had a chat a year ago about some stuff, and I'll literally be hey man, how's things going? Is your business still open? That kind of thing.
Yeah, nice.
And I'm why haven't we worked with each other yet?
Nice approach.
You know what I mean? I've already got all the context I need from 12 months ago. So now it's more about finding out what would it take for you just to say yes? What would make this a no-brainer? And then working out if that's a possibility or not,
Yeah. I think it's a much nicer approach than I couldn't tell you the number of messages that I get per week that are hey Chris, do you have time for 20 to 30 qualified leads directly in your inbox every week? And I'm I've heard this. I couldn't tell you how many times I've heard this. I know exactly what you're selling. I know how everything works, and I'm not interested. And there's no personal connection whatsoever. Whereas it's so different to someone who reaches out and says, hey, I see what you're doing. It sounds really cool. Can you tell me a little bit more about this? This is really interesting to me. It's okay, cool. You want to have an actual conversation rather than just be hey, do you want me to run Google ads and meta ads for you? Pass.
Yeah. Honestly, I'd prefer somebody say that directly. Hey, I run ads, would love to work with you. Got time for a 20-minute call, right?
Yeah.
And maybe with an anecdote or something in there, because I find that way less offensive and to a certain degree more appealing. I would actually I would have a chat with that person, right? Versus here's this much text and a clear, there's a hook, there's a value proposition, there's a this, that, and you can almost break down the elements of this message. And then for the next 3 days, I'm getting hey, not sure if you saw my last message. I get it, right? But that to me is such low value outreach that it's almost not worth sending the connection request full stop, right? And at the moment,
my perception of that is always that it's low effort. You have not spent any time here. So where I'm getting the impression that this is something that you put a high amount of effort into, if your opening message is the most obvious copy and pasted thing that everybody gets. Have you taken 10 seconds to scroll back through and go, oh, this dude made a video about warming up. Let me just say, oh, hey, I really enjoyed your warm-up video. Even if you haven't seen it, at least there's a tiny bit of effort that's gone into it, rather than just Control-C, Control-V, 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 send.
1,000.
I don't think it does much for credibility, just having everything low effort from personally.
Correct. I agree. But that also could be an us thing, right?
I mean,
Because
yeah,
for me,
yeah.
like the me is
Mm,
quite important, right? There are people who represent me, right?
mhm,
Quite
mhm.
frequently. My team has my email,
Yeah, yeah.
my calendar, my, they're signed into a lot of my socials as well.
Mhm.
And the thing is, though, most people will not know whether it's me or not,
Right,
right?
yeah.
Because one is like process, two is my team knows me super well, and three, I don't want to be misrepresented, right?
Yeah,
Like those, like, because that's important to me, right?
yeah.
Even if someone's like, no, 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 not today or whatever, I would rather end that conversation with like, what, dude, like, it's all good. Nice meeting you anyway.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll catch up in 6 months, see where you're at. And for them to be like, yeah, that sounds good. As opposed to it being like, I will follow up with you in 6 months because I'm not going to move you to my dead leads pile yet. Right. Um, because the core behind the conversation is I bring value to you and your ecosystem, and
Mhm,
you bring value to me and my ecosystem, right?
mhm.
So if that core belief is there, you don't need to do those copy pastes. Just have a
Yeah,
chat, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, super interesting, that approach. But it obviously works because people are still doing it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a numbers
And
game, and if you put 1,000 of those in at the top of the funnel and you get one come out at the
someone's gonna
bottom,
have
but it just took you pressing paste, 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 paste. Or, I mean, realistically, that's done automated anyway, isn't it? So the
sometimes.
script does that for
Sometimes
you.
like automations are like $3 an hour.
Yeah, yeah.
Someone doing the thing.
Whereas if you put 50 high quality conversations in at the funnel and get the same
Yeah,
output, it's different things for different people, isn't it?
100%. Like I'm doing like, and again, I'm really good at like anecdotes because I do so many different things to make a point. But I've got this list, like a list of it's about 600 people for a very specific activity, right? And
Sure.
these are 600-ish Australian, certain persona, etc. And the whole idea is so I've whittled this list down into like a sub list because that's just the initial search, right? And from those, so far we've picked 100 and sending very detailed connections, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not the usual like, hey, I'm Shuj, let's connect and have a chat, right? Because like again, I'm pretty casual. You've seen my, you know, greetings, right? It's pretty casual.
Yeah.
And so this is like really like they're we into them a little deeper than just a scroll. Do the scroll, check out the website, look for an email, see if the company's up, and this is just some rogue who worked there like 10 years ago and didn't actually update their profile or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
And the end there is to have as close to sort of 80 to 90% acceptance
Cool.
and have quality conversations with every single one of those people. So you
Wow.
can't do that generically, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas there are other things where I'm like, it's okay to be a little more shotgunny,
Right.
like if you're like your example, if you're looking for people in your time zone, you've got maybe what, like 100 million, or you can shotgun 100 million people, and I'm sure it'll be really successful. It'll take a bit of time, but it can be done.
Yeah. Take a bit of time. Yeah.
Whereas like for this specific activity, I can't shotgun 100 million people, even though I'd love to. That would be sick, but not physically possible given the outcome. Yeah. It's interesting. I love the like marketing. I love they call it marketing. I just like it's just like people stuff,
Yeah. Yeah. It is. It is. I'm
Um,
learning it as I learn more about
yeah.
what it is and what it isn't.
Yeah, and like I think translating it as well. Like if you ever feel icky, right? it's probably because that's not an action you'd take or something you would say in real life, right?
Yeah.
And humanizing
Definitely.
metrics is something that I'm really good at, right? And humanizing the outcomes of metrics as well. Like, you know, we see it in our apps all the time where, like, you know, we've got developers, we've got CSMs, we've got, you know, da 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 da. And then someone's like, you know, you hear not necessarily complaint, but like, oh man, we're trying to fix this thing, but then we're also this other thing's coming in, da 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 da. Client is, I'm like, listen, bro, like, let's wind this back. Okay.
Cool.
Let's wind this back. Now, instead of referring to a person as a user, right? Let's call them a person. Okay. And again, because we work closely with the clients themselves, and then their customers are important to them the same way they're important to us, right? So if Jane from wherever, right, is struggling to make a booking because there's some bug with our payment system, that means John and blah 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 are probably also same struggles. They're just not saying anything. So there's that. Next, the actual client who can't take that booking right now, like, he's just trying to get on with his life, right? Get paid, go home, hang out with his kids. And all of a sudden, an hour of his day is spent on the phone helping Jane make a booking, which is supposed to be bread and butter here, guys. I don't care what the exception is, care what tiny little thing, the core function is to book. So how about let's humanize everything and fix the booking stuff without, you know, like, yes, client is worried because core function not working. Like, it makes sense, you know, rather than it just being like another ticket, you know? But applying that to marketing and conversations makes a huge difference to the outcomes. Because all of a sudden a lead isn't a lead, it's a human being. Which is much more workable than a lead.
Definitely. I definitely agree.
Amazing. If you had, so expanding through unlimited time, unlimited money, what would be done in the realm of Chris?
Unlimited time would be spent getting all of us talking to each other, I would say. So, for example, I did work really hard on the SEO of my website, and then I haven't really done anything with it for a year and a half since transitioning to video. But what I would ideally like to do is the weekly videos which I'm producing should also be posted as a blog post and transcripted, and get the keywords in there for the specific subject matter. And then the website is being updated every week, the same as my socials. So if I had unlimited time, that would happen. I need to move the URL of the website over, for example, which isn't an enormous task, but I'm not an IT guy. So to make sure that I don't mess it up, I'm going to have to do some research and really take my time. Then there's the customer side of things, which is related to programming and delivering good quality information to clients outside of their one-to-one session time with me, and making sure that all works. I think it's unlimited time by creating a proper ecosystem. At the moment, I've got a thing over here, and something down here, and something down here, and they're not really functioning together in the most efficient way possible, because my output goes to either here or here, where if things talks to each other, my output would just kind of spread more seamlessly across the ecosystem. So that's what I would want to do with unlimited time. Unlimited money is an interesting one, because part of my answer is like, oh, I would pay someone to just make the ecosystem just do everything for me. And then the timing, if I can just say, oh, cool, here are the problems I have. I have an unlimited budget. You know what I mean? Not unlimited budget, but I have, tell me what it's to make this talk to this, talk to this, talk to this, talk to this, and then and tell me what my answer is, because I think it should be this. Am I correct? Yeah, so unlimited money is an interesting one. I think I'd video editing stuff, because as I've got better at it, I've started enjoying it.
Mhm.
Do you know what I would do? I would do a couple of courses. I would do a couple of courses to learn more about editing, because at the moment I learn by reflecting on what I personally consume in my own time.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's the main way to learn. And then I'll just experiment with something on my own software and go, oh yeah, that kind of works. Oh no, that doesn't really work. So formalizing some education around video, and buy a better camera. I use my phone camera at the moment, which does a decent job of being good enough, but I would say it just passes the threshold of being good enough. And when you watch something with really high shot quality, really high production quality, you can tell the difference. You can tell the difference. I can't quite put on what the difference is, but I know that it's better than what I'm currently producing.
It's and if we want to go down the nerd rabbit hole, right? It's so the depth of the lens matters, right?
Yeah.
The depth of the lens matters a lot. So like now you can see the field of view here, how you can tell there is depth behind me. If I was using a laptop or even my phone, you wouldn't get this depth. So that makes a huge difference, and the way light interacts the lens, but also the size of the output, right? So 4K 60 frames, right? That's a lot of pixels, and a lot of changing pixels at any given moment. So having access to all of them, right? And then you essentially pick your 1080p square and you move it around that tactically. That's what makes the edits from certain hardware pop a lot more than other hardware. Yeah, there's a channel called MKBHD, YouTube. He's like one of the largest YouTubers of all time. He's our age, I think. He's a 90s kid. And has been doing it since he was like 12 or 13.
Oh wow.
And back then phone cameras weren't really a thing.
Yeah.
But now you can sort of like, he does the occasional like how my text changed, blah blah blah, but you can transition. Now he uses like Red Magic cameras that are like, even I'm terrified to even Google the price of. But the Sonys to the Canons, you can see the transition. And for him, it's all about squeezing out the micro amount of quality. Cool. And the price goes significantly up. But the difference between phone and just a camera,
it's levels, isn't it?
Plenty, it comes down to where do we is good enough, and at what point are you just making excuses for not doing the thing? I did that. I'm guilty of that. Like, I can't do it, the lighting's not right. Like, just get it done, should.
Yeah. At some point, I think that's now I'm at a point where everything that I produce, I'm like, do you know what? Yeah, this is acceptable.
Yeah.
Possibly no more than acceptable. And I know cameras could be the big
take
that up another level, and then learning some more editing magic is going to be taking that up another level again.
Sure.
But I agree. Figuring out where's the minimum viable product, right?
That's it. Because what I like is doing it regardless. You're like, whatever. Phone's there. Will it be nice for the camera? Yeah, but the phone's there. And that is a much better attitude than like, cannot record because I don't have a camera. Which again, people are guilty. Like, I'm guilty of that sometimes as well. Like, I won't go out if the wrong t-shirt is in the laundry, but then there's a part of me that's like, look, I just don't want to go out, but that's So interesting. I like answers you, and I guess given those, what would be the next milestone you'd be working towards for a matter of like focusing some of that time and the money elements that you mentioned?
So I think one's a little bit chicken and an egg scenario, which is upgrading the equipment that I'm using and how my reach is on my content. And it's like, okay, do I hit this reach and then get a better camera, or do I get a better camera and then that's instrumental in improving reach? It's a little bit of a which one comes first. What point do you get where you justify going, okay, do you know what? Yeah, I have this money. I can actually spend this on some upgraded hardware. So that's a milestone. The engagement is a milestone. From a business point with my own clients, I'm very fortunate to be in a place where my clients work with me and get value with me for long periods of time. So the bread and butter's in a really good place, which I'm very happy about. And yeah, I think the next milestones are growth of content, and there's some way to that, and some of the to be. So the ecosystem challenge, I'm not sure I'd consider that a milestone, because I think it's something that should always be evolving. But there are evolutionary steps which I need to be taking. I don't know if I'd consider those big enough to be a milestone in and of themselves, but they probably are.
Yeah, I'd say so. I'd say they directly tie into your if you had unlimited, right? That actually makes sense, right?
Yeah, true.
That's typically some of the stuff that I like hearing is like, oh, hey, this is the stars and the moon, but then the milestone is literally just like 2 steps towards that,
Yeah, that's true. I suppose I can be guilty sometimes of thinking that a milestone needs to be a massive thing, but actually you can tick off important tasks on the way to a massive thing, which can still be milestones in and of themselves, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And hey, this is something that I learned from somebody who's very, very good at what they do. It was their birthday. I'll never forget it, but they were putting together a home gym, right?
Cool.
Which had nothing to do with what they did for work. Dude's just jacked, right?
I approve.
Didn't want to go to the gym. So, and there was a bunch of like really weirdly niche stuff. And little things, cable and down to like a really premium bill to, little things that really nice, not particularly cheap, because the rest is set up premium stuff, but versatile, Anyway, it was his birthday and he was like, guys, this is my birthday wish list, right? And it was stuff like, a $2,000 pulley system or something, and a etc., right? And this down the list. Basically, he was like, look, I don't just like, I get it, I'm asking a lot, but he framed it like this, was basically, you buy me this. It was kind of like a Kickstarter campaign, right? Where he's like, you buy me this and you will get my $6,000 to $8,000 package that I offer, that people pay me for regularly, right? I'll give to you for this gift, right? It sort of trickled down like that. Like, obviously, if someone's buying him like a $200 barbell, he's not, changing the face of their entire business. But reciprocated value that provide,
I like
that cost him time, resource, but still gave tons of value. Bro, he sold that entire list out. Like,
good effort, fair play. I like that.
I had never seen that in my life, and I thought it was a really cool way to, one, celebrate your birthday, two, like essentially give out, some of your stuff at incredibly low price. But when you consider like that pulley, like I've used that, it's a lat pull down and row, and you can use it for curls. You can use it. I've used it. It's a pin loaded thing. Amazing. right? It's one of those things you would froth having in your home gym, right? I've got a rack and a bench, dude. Like,
Yeah. There's levels. Yeah.
and there's a integrated rack. I can do this and I can do rows. That's it. So to have like a cool, anyway, hours and hours of value. I'm like, bro, actually, I'm pretty sure the person who bought it ripped off, because they only got $7,000 marketing package, which again, like tons of value in that. But
oh yeah,
I'm like, here
that's
we
a
are,
cool way
4 years later, still pumping. I think that's sick. Just an idea. I don't know.
I like it.
Yeah, it takes a bit of that kind of person energy to pull it off. Yeah, it's one that I've had in my back pocket for a long time. Like one day I'm gonna try something like that. Because I think it'll be just so cool. Yeah. So I guess coming through with those milestones, bootstrapping, looking at external, maybe a hire or something to help out with some of those things. Any thoughts around those avenues, or not quite yet?
So I've always self-financed everything that I've done business-wise. I like the control, sole decision making, and sometimes you financing for extreme growth, but that's not where I'm. Loans or investment isn't a place where I'm at. The downside of that is that it means that things are obviously a little bit more tight, because it's a difficult one to get your business money and think, that's not mine, that's my business, it needs to be invested well, but also it is also mine. It's my company, but the company belongs to me, so vis-a-vis it's mine, but you have to be intelligent and discerning where you choose to invest things. But yeah, at the moment, from a funding point of view, that's not where I'm at. Don't have some crazy master plan to build £100 million business. That's not where I'm at. What the objective is at the moment in time.
Maybe next year.
Yeah. So from a funding point of view, it's all me. It's all me, and I'm honestly more comfortable with it being that way at the moment. I have a decent appetite for risk, but I don't have a plan to justify high levels of risk at the moment, as in external high levels of investment and risk.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, I get that. Very similar attitude. I like being the agent when it comes to certain things. Like we have, a couple of partners for some of the bigger levels, because it's like not so much, like the finance element is there, right? But there's also intent behind choosing specific people and what they bring to the table, right?
For sure.
So sharing that and on those externals can be a very tactical move, but it's not always the move, and quite often it can cause problems, and it solves if you're not super intentional about it, I guess. Amazing. And what kind of support do you think would accelerate some of those milestones the most?
I think the most amount of support for acceleration towards milestones is a lot of it's around structure, and again, kind of the logistics of creating an ecosystem which itself, so that time that I'm inputting has the maximum output possible. So as we've discussed, the I'm inputting at the moment has an output here and an output here. It has the potential to have output everywhere else, but currently I don't have the time to do that all manually. Yeah, that's the biggest opportunity at acceleration.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, you're very aware. I think we've talked this before as well, but yeah, you're very aware of like not just what, like, there's a lot of reflection I can tell in terms of like, the experience to date and actions and things like that, but also the present and also the avenues for the future, which is actually super cool. Where you're like, look, I know that I have different things I can do. Still haven't gotten around to figuring out which one is most impactful.
Yeah.
I think it's this, but I'm not too sure yet. Like I think that's
ironically, if I had as much time thinking about what I could do as just doing one thing, then it'd probably be further ahead. But but at the same time, I might be further ahead down a path that I'm not sure. I do like to borderline overanalyze every decision that I make it quickly. But there's a lot of thought that goes into it. So
yeah, no, I think it's good because it's like I don't think the like the way we've spoken and some of the things that you brought up and stuff doesn't sound like your classic decision paralysis. And more is like you know, what's my life look like if I do this thing, right? What's my life gonna look like if I do this thing or this thing? And then you sort of take you take your time or whatever, we can call it slow, whatever. But like I like the deep thought process behind it, and then committing to that path with the full understanding of what it brings, right? Rather than you mentioned before, where you're like, oh well, more time doing, less time thinking. Yeah, but we've seen that in action how many times?
Yeah.
We've seen that in action. You just do yourself into a brick wall and you're like, oh well, maybe I should have gone around it, you know. Yeah, and like those, that can create decision paralysis where you hit that wall so many times where like, shit, I don't even want to do anything anymore. But yeah, this is different, and I like it. There's a calmness and to it.
I appreciate it. Yeah. I have some balance of decision making, but no one has it.
No, and if they'd in my way, I'd love to love.
Yeah. If you watch this and you think, no, my decision making is pretty perfect, then
please
share it. How?
Exactly. That's amazing. So now let's get into our little sort of lightning round. What's the best piece of advice that you have received along your journey?
I would say that the best piece of advice that I've received on the journey so far is from an old client of mine, business associate and friend, to be fair, who sat down and had an initial conversation with me around content, and his advice was go for the highest effort output possible because it filters out all of the people who can't be bothered. So you've got 1 million people in fitness who are making posts on Canva. You've got 500,000 people who are taking low quality photos for information. You've then maybe got 100,000 people who are doing video content to a decent degree. And then maybe at the very, very top, maybe you've got 5,000 who are doing super high quality information with high production value. Aim for the highest possible, because most of the people down here, they can't be bothered to learn how to do the very top stuff. And you can rise to the top just by putting in more effort and choosing the highest effort output possible. And for me, that really spoke to me. It clicked with me. I was like, I get that, because I had no interest in spending of my effort or even less than that making some stuff that's like, it's fine. I would rather top. And even if I'm only doing a passable job of high quality information with good output quality, I'm working towards getting towards the top output. So that's the best piece of I've ever got.
Hell yeah, that's really good. That's good advice. Really good, and it's super practical as well, you know. It's very, very non, which is cool. And so given that, what would be a piece of you'd give to somebody who is starting out?
I would say figure out what your options, quickly figure out what your options are in terms of how you're going to move forwards, and pick one of those and focus on it for a really decent period of time, and accept that you will probably be focusing and putting a lot of effort into it for 12 to 24 months before you really see the fruits of the labor that have gone into that. But I personally started off with an approach where I was doing a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, trying to talk to everybody. And in the grand scheme of things, it got me nowhere. And since I've been very specifically focused on an avenue forwards, it's started to work. So the best advice I think I can give is, if you try and do everything, you'll do nothing.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Amazing. And Chris,
it's brutal putting it that bluntly.
Like,
it's true for me. It's been.
Yeah, I think that's sick. Because again, is non-kumbaya. It's very real, very practical.
Yeah.
And yeah, like it's taken us, I guess, years of fiddling, of advice, of this, of trying, of blah blah blah, to come to that point. So for that to be your giveaway to somebody is fantastic, because how often do we see like ultra successful people be like, just keep trying, bro? Like, thanks, man.
Yeah.
Thanks.
There's also of insanity, which is trying the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result, right? So there's got to be a balance somewhere.
Yeah, 100%. And Chris, where can we find out more about you and the work that you do?
Cool. The best place to find me is on YouTube, because that's where my longer form content goes out, where I provide the most information. And if you search Chris Keep PT, you'll find me on YouTube. You will also find me on LinkedIn, Chris Keep, and you'll find me on Instagram and TikTok at Chris Keep PT. So if you like short form stuff that's snappy and gets to the point, then follow me on Instagram, on TikTok. If you want more of a professional relationship, I'd love to connect on LinkedIn. And for my longer form content, where I get a little bit more into specific topics, YouTube, Chris Keep PT.
Oh yeah, we'll have those linked down below. Highly recommend. It's a very healthy rabbit hole to start scrolling on. Get to the gym, send some DMs, do the things. I love it. Thank you so much, Chris. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a real pleasure. It's been a real pleasure. Real
appreciate it.
Appreciate your time.
The journey we've been on to get this out.
And there's been challenges along the way that we've overcome. So there you go.
Exactly. Cool. Shud signing off. Thank you, everybody. We'll catch you guys in the next one. All the best.